हेलो स्टूडेंट्स, इस वीडियो में मैं आपको डिक्टेशन दे रहा हूं प्रोग्रेसिव मैगजीन से। और मुझे उम्मीद है कि आप सर कैलाश चंद्रा मैगजीन से पहले कर चुके होंगे। ये नेक्स्ट डिफ़िकल्टी लेवल है सर कैलाश चंद्रा मैगजीन के बाद। और अगर आपने जिस भी स्पीड पर कैलाश चंद्रा मैगजीन लिखी है उससे 5 या 10 वर्ड कम स्पीड पर लिखिए प्रोग्रेसिव, अगर आपको प्रॉपरली स्विच ओवर करना है तो। नहीं तो आपकी मिस्टेक्स ज़्यादा आएंगी और आप डिस्करेज हो जाएंगे। ये मैसेज मैंने आपको देना था इस वीडियो में, इसको डिक्टेशन को स्टार्ट करने से पहले। और इसकी अच्छी तरह से प्रैक्टिस कीजिए। जो भी आपको आउटलाइंस ट्रांसक्रिप्शन करने के बाद जो भी आपसे मिसिंग हो जाती हैं, सब्स्टिट्यूशंस होते हैं, उनको प्रैक्टिस कीजिए और उसके बाद उसको फिर ज़रूर लिखिएगा। ये मेरी सजेशन है। और लास्टली, अगर आपने इस चैनल को अगर यूज़फुल लगता है और आपने सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया अभी तक, तो प्लीज़ इसको सब्सक्राइब भी कीजिए। थैंक यू।
Please get ready for a dictation of exercise number 11 from Progressive Magazine of March 2022. 5 seconds. Start. You have assembled to perform the exacting tasks which lie ahead of you. Not only have you to transact the formal legislative business, but also to take stock of the problems that the nation faces and give guidance to the government and the people. Barely had the country overcome the extraordinary challenges of 1971 when we were confronted with fresh problems. The after effects of the influx of refugees and the war were aggravated by drought in several parts of the country. Our hearts go out to all those who have been affected by drought and in certain other areas by cyclone and floods. Works on a large scale were undertaken in all affected areas to provide employment and relief. Our buffer stock of food grains, along with the strengthening of the public distribution system, enabled the government to meet the situation. In 1972, about 10.6 million tons of grains were distributed through the public system. Invariably, the drought led to a fall in food production, particularly in the areas of rain-fed cultivation, and this in turn influenced prices, which have registered a sharp, remarkable increase since May last year. This has been a matter of grave concern to my government. In addition to strengthening the public distribution system, as mentioned above, an emergency program was launched to increase Rabi and summer food grains production to offset the loss of Kharif output. We expect a good Rabi crop this year. Nonetheless, we must husband all available food resources and avoid waste. Prices of food articles can be brought under check and the interests of the common people safeguarded by taking over the surplus of wheat and rice, by eliminating wholesale traders, and by organizing distribution of food grains, especially to scarcity areas and the vulnerable section of the population. The wholesale trade in wheat will be taken over from the coming wheat marketing season. This will be followed by the takeover or wholesale trade in rice. The success of this program calls for the wholehearted cooperation of surplus as well as deficit states. The emphasis on credit policy continues to be one of restraint, consistent with the need to maximize production, meet priorities, and attend to hitherto neglected sectors. The government's program of market borrowings during the year was designed to absorb the surplus liquidity of the commercial banking system and also to help the lower sector of India. The relatively sluggish rate of growth of industrial production in 1970 and 1971 gave place upward trend in 1972. Industrial production increased by over 7% during the year. It would have been still higher but for the shortage of power in most parts of the country. Government is taking short-term and long-term measures to improve the generation, transmission and distribution of power. Government has recently clarified its industrial licensing policy of curbing monopolies and the concentration of economic power consistent with the objectives and the priorities of production during the fifth five-year plan. Several measures which should stimulate investment on a wide front have been announced. The larger number of applications and approvals for licenses, capital goods, finance from industrial financing institutions, registration of companies and capital issues all indicate a gathering tempo of industrial activity. Government is also laying emphasis on the active implementation of industrial licenses already granted and is devising practical measures to increase the pace of implementation. Government has devoted attention to the problems of textile and engineering units which have been lying closed or are facing serious difficulties due to mismanagement and failure to reinvest surpluses and to modernize the plants. The management of a number of these units has been taken over this year in order to revive production and ensure continuous employment. With the restoration of law and order in West Bengal, industrial recovery is gaining momentum under a new economic program. In our steady march towards socialism, an increasingly wide segment of economic activity has been brought under public ownership and management. This covers a major part of transport and communications, power, coal, steel, heavy engineering, banking, insurance, and important segments of external and internal trade. As a result of the vigorous steps taken by government, a definite improvement was discernible in most public sector units last year. Ultimately, production and the quality of service to the people in all these fields depend on the dedication and sense of involvement of managers and workers. In the changed context, both managers and workers have to give up the traditional concept of their roles. Management has to develop new attitudes and look upon workmen as participants in the service of the people. Workers should not allow trade union rivalry to prevent them from fulfilling their historic role of being in the vanguard of socialist transformation by making our public enterprises successful and models of service to the people to achieve highest national growth. On its part, government recognizes the central role of the worker in the economic process and shall help for this. Stop.